All right, Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation, my brothers and sisters. This is where right and left can come to try to be reasonable. So, are we closer to peace in Ukraine after these two big meetings? You had the big meet with Zelenskyy today and the top European leaders after the much pilloried Putin meeting in Alaska on Friday. Three things, quick. One, good for America, continuing to try to end the war. We never say that. But you saw a great show of strength today. The President of the United States says to European leaders, hey, you want to be at the table, get to the table, come here right now. They come. Biden tried to end the war. America didn't have to. Trump has been trying, despite wanting to focus less on issues abroad than Biden, right? It was a big part of his campaign, yet he's been as deep in this as he is in anything. And it is proof that America does still represent trying to do the right thing in this planet. For all the criticism that we give her, we remain a singular world power and presence, and you saw that today. Second, to appreciate today and Friday, you have to remember where we were recently. Trump went into this meeting with Putin by threatening him that he better agree or else.
Will Russia face any consequences if Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences be?
There will be consequences.
Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences, yes.
You know, right? He was playing it hard. He had been tweeting those things that he thinks he's crazy and all that, right? That's where we were. But then at the meeting, we saw what is described to me as, hey, Chris, we tried the stick. We got to try the carrot. You got to keep going back and forth. Hence, you see literally rolling out the red carpet, clapping for him, which I really thought was more of a kind of a stress breaker than it was celebrating Putin. But you can think whatever you want. After the meeting, he said a ceasefire is no longer necessary. All right, so very different disposition. And we all remember the last public moment with Ukraine's president, right? Remember what happened in February?
You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not
cards.
Playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards. You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Never seen anything like it, right? So apolitic, so kind of airing dirty laundry, you know, so frightening, frankly, right? Today, very different vibe.
The war is going to end. When it ends, I can't tell you, but the war is going to end, and this gentleman wants it to end, and Vladimir Putin wants it to end. I think the whole world is tired of it, and we're going to get it ended.
You know, and again, just a reminder, America doesn't have to do this. America doesn't have to be involved in the Middle East. It doesn't have to. And in fact, a big part of our campaign most recently was what? The president and MAGA saying enough with the foreign stuff. So, you know, this is a really interesting kind of exercise of Americana and what it means. Now, why this difference? Again, I'm told that it's not about Trump, he's completely schizophrenic. No, I think it's actually strategic. I don't know if it'll work. But the administration is trying the carrot after recent licks with sticks on the backside of both sides. But the reaction to both of these meetings are not what I'm talking to you about right now, right? Strategy and tactics and outcomes. It's all about another war, which is never going to end, between our left and right political party fringes. And it's much uglier and stickier and recalcitrant and not going anywhere and intransigent than the war in Ukraine. That's why we hear more about Trump clapping for Putin and what it means and Zelenskyy capitulating to a dress code than we do the prospects of peace. So here, let's miss the mishigas between left and right for a moment and see where we are in terms of moving the ball forward. Let's bring in NewsNation's White House correspondent Kellie Meyer and NewsNation foreign correspondent Robert Sherman, who has really been setting the tone in Kyiv. You can't cover this situation if you're never where the war is going on. So good for Robert. But the war at home, Kellie Meyer, what do we learn here about what comes next because of what we saw Friday and today?
Yeah, and they seem to be pushing the ball here to this bilateral
meeting between Putin and Zelensky, Chris. That was a change. They were pushing for this trilateral, but it was in that phone call. Zelensky says that it was a phone call between Trump and Putin where Putin said he wants to do the bilateral first with Zelensky and him, and then move on to the potential trilateral. We just heard NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte telling us that today was really about security guarantees and getting the U.S. more involved. And we have seen the U.S. more involved, as you pointed out there. A senior White House official told me that Trump spoke with Putin alone in the Oval Office for about 40 minutes during that break in the meeting with European leaders and Zelensky. And then he continued to keep those leaders in the loop after he spoke with Putin. And then Germany's chancellor saying that the meeting between Zelensky and Putin could happen somewhere in the next 2 weeks, but no location was chosen. And then when you were talking about there, Chris, about the politics of today, a lot of talk about Zelensky's outfit choice making headlines today. For some Republican senators like Mike Lee, he wrote, "Nothing says this meeting is important like showing up in a T-shirt." He did show up in a T-shirt for his meeting this morning with General Kellogg, and then came to the White House. And what you see there on your screen, for what it's worth, he did change for the Oval Office meeting. And the reporter who asked him in February about his outfit, he told him that he was looking nice today, and Zelensky shot back by saying that reporter was in the same suit as last time. So even Trump commenting today saying that no matter what he does, he's going to get pushback from Democrats and some Republicans on this. But it was a historic moment here at the White House today to see all those leaders coming here at one time to try to solve and put an end to this war. Chris.
Quick bounce on it, Kelly. What is the disposition of the administration toward how it's being received? Because nobody's talking about whether or not to give up Donbass, what it really means. And we'll go to Robert about what this means back in Ukraine and how it might be accepted. But whether or not NATO should be part of a peacekeeping and whether or not that, nobody's talking about that. They're saying, man, does he love Putin? Man, does he, and boy, did he treat Zelensky like a dog. How are they processing how it's being processed versus what they need to achieve?
Yeah, it's a good question. And you heard the president kind of touch on that in the Oval Office today, saying people were saying that I lost by bringing Putin here to our territory. But he says if I went somewhere else, they would be mad about that. So learning the ways of Washington, which no matter what he does, he's going to get pushback on. And then he's continuing to push forward. So he commented on it. He said he was frustrated at the news reports. But he did even commend some of the journalists later in the day, saying they were doing good reporting on this. But he seems to be pushing ahead with this, even though, like you said, despite him saying he wanted to do Make America Great Again, focus on America, he is taking this on for what it's worth and trying to move the ball forward, which it does seem to be pushing ahead here, Chris.
Pretty low percentage, if you think about it, too. For a guy who likes to talk about winning and getting quick wins, trying to get Russia to do the right thing, trying to end the war in the Middle East, I mean, tough orders. Kellie Meyer, always good reporting, and thank you. I appreciate it, Kellie Meyer. Now, let's go from what it means here to where it really matters, which is on the ground in Kyiv, where thousands of people, not in Kyiv, but in the battleground regions to the east, thousands are dying every week there, okay? NewsNation foreign correspondent Robert Sherman has been putting in the work on the ground where people don't like to go, and I respect and appreciate you being there very much. Now, the idea that's on the table of, forget about what he's wearing, nobody cares about that where you are right now, but give me the Donbass and we will end the war. What does that prospect mean from Vladimir Putin in the capital city of Ukraine?
Well, the big issue that complicates all of this here, Chris, is that people certainly want peace on the ground here in Ukraine. They want to live in a world in which they don't have to sleep in the subway stations every night. But deals such as this make them nervous because they believe it sets the table for another invasion down the road. I give you an example. When you look at the Donbass region, what President Zelensky told us when we were at the presidential palace is that if they withdraw their troops from Luhansk and Donetsk region, those are strategic heights that they will be giving Russia access to, which they believe Russia will use to launch another invasion in a couple of years. The reason for that, remember, Russia has written into their constitution that they should have total governance of all four of these regions here. Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, Kherson. They should get all of it. That's why Ukrainians believe that Russia will come back for another bite at the apple in a couple of years, unless there are security guarantees that are put in place. That's why you saw that meeting at the White House today. And that's why you saw those conversations with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte and all those European heads of state. Security guarantees to ensure that Russia does not encroach on Ukrainian soil again. You have this other element here too, Chris, is that in the last 24 hours, you've heard sirens going off here. You saw strikes taking place all across Ukraine. 10 people were killed in the last 24 hours here. This is the issue for Ukrainians here. They're not convinced Russia is angling for peace right now, and they won't be convinced until there's a deal that is signed, sealed, and delivered with security guarantees coming from the West. Chris?
Quick bounce. Robert, what is the basic common wisdom there, whether Zelensky can survive as president if he gives away territories to make peace?
The thinking is that could be a really difficult one. It depends how it's done here, but an outright giving away of territory, potentially with a constitutional referendum, would not be well received by the public here, and you would likely see some calls for leadership change.
Remember where we started, though. They wanted everything they have and Crimea. So we'll see if there's any sliding of that. Robert, please stay safe. Thank you for the reporting you and the team are doing on the ground for NewsNation. Makes a difference. All right, now, let's get, everybody says there's two sides to the story. There are always at least three, okay? And maybe none of them are completely true. So let's get three different bites at this apple, all right? Different ideas. Former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor. Former Russian political prisoner, okay? I've had him on the show before. Vladimir Kara-Murza, okay? And former special advisor to Ukraine's commander-in-chief, Dan Rice. It's good to have each and all of you. Dan, I start with you. Are Friday's and today's meetings discernible as progress on this road, or is it just more?
Chris, there couldn't be a different atmosphere from Friday to today. It's impossible to predict this, but Putin left Alaska on a high, and he is on a low right now. All of Europe has come together in a short period of time to come to the U.S., to the Capitol, to the White House, and they have coalesced in a way that's never happened in 76 years of NATO. And so this is an amazing time for NATO to come together to support Ukraine. And I've never seen anything like it. It's amazing. And I got to believe the Russians are just reeling from this.
Well, the question is it make or break? So, Vlad, what's your take on this, that Trump went to NATO, okay, and said, hey, you got to get involved with this. If there's peacekeeping, who's paying for this stuff that's going to come there, you got to get more involved, which was seen as a pretty ballsy move in this dynamic because of what Putin thinks of NATO. How big a deal do you believe that is? Do you think it is never going to happen in any way if there's to be peace with Vladimir Putin's participation?
Well, first of all, it's really important today to see this strong coalition of leaders from across Europe standing shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine in Washington, D.C. And this is indeed a very big contrast from what we saw last Friday, which, to many people was just a rerun of the Munich agreement. It was, a lot of people were being forgiven last week for checking their calendars to see if it was 2025 or 1938, because that is exactly what happened in September of 1938, when the leaders of Britain and France just basically handed out a piece of Czechoslovakia without so much as asking that country to Adolf Hitler. And that was, by the way, was also the formula which you, Chris, just repeated a few moments ago, land for peace. That is not a good formula. If there is one very clear lesson from history in all this, it is that appeasing an aggressor, rewarding an aggressor, can never lead to real peace. And I do not believe, we know who Vladimir Putin is. We know his track record for the past 25 years as a dictator of Russia. I do not believe there can be peace, real, tangible, lasting peace, while this man remains in power. And let's not discount the gigantic propaganda and PR coup that Vladimir Putin got last Friday by the very fact of his invitation to meet the United States president on American soil and being given, literally, as we just saw on those images there, red carpet treatment. Absolutely. And let's not forget, Vladimir Putin is an illegitimate usurper. He stayed in power without free and fair elections, in violations of constitutional term limits, for which he was formally declared to be a usurper by European lawmakers in 2023 and 2024. Countries across Europe, by formal resolutions of non-recognition, do not recognize Vladimir Putin as the legitimate president because he's not. And there he is, as your viewers can see now, walking side by side the American president on red carpet on American soil. And let's not forget also that Vladimir Putin is an indicted war criminal with an active arrest warrant hanging over him for war crimes he's committed in Ukraine from the International Criminal Court. And this is, by the way, the reason for the location of last Friday's meeting, because Vladimir Putin is paranoid of flying over the airspace of any country that could potentially honor the arrest warrant, land his plane, and get him over to The Hague where he belongs. And this is the only way to get directly from Russian territory to U.S. territory, just a short 60-mile fly over the Bering Strait from Chukotka to Alaska without getting over any country's territory. And suddenly, within just a few hours, this man, this usurper, this dictator, this indicted war criminal who was a pariah for the civilized international community over these past years, has suddenly received a ticket back from isolation, a ticket back to be recognized as a bona fide member of the international community. I think this is very shameful. I think this is very counterproductive, and that's not going to lead us to anything good.
Might makes right, and it's not worth taking time up tonight, but I guarantee you, Vlad and I, we are different perspectives on this situation, of course, given your lived experience, but neither of us ever saw we would see the political right, who once called themselves conservatives, seeing Putin as the better frenemy of between Zelensky and Putin. Who would have ever thought that the political right would give Putin the nod as being a better potential ally than a democratically elected leader in Ukraine? But there are factions of that going on right now, which complicates it. But if we stick to what really matters here, Ambassador, I remember the last time I was in Ukraine, and of course you don't have to be in a place to understand it, not with social media and the internet today, but giving up land was a non-starter. They wanted Crimea back. The idea of giving anything was never going to happen. Now it's always in the conversation. Do you believe that is the reality?
No. Chris, the Ukrainians, both Zelensky and the people, oppose giving any land to Russia. That is clear. They will acknowledge grimly, through gritted teeth, that the Russians occupy 90% of their country. And they, again, grimly, with gritted teeth, say that they're not going to be able right now to push the Russians out of that 19%. But there's a big difference between acknowledging the illegal Russian occupation and giving land back. Even acknowledging that Russia has and should have Crimea and Donbass. But Putin wants more than that. Putin wants the Ukrainians to give up voluntarily, give up the strategic heights that they have been using to defend. The Ukrainians have been using to defend themselves, and the Russians have been trying to take these strategic cities in Donbass, in Donetsk, failing, even though spending incredible numbers of Russian soldiers dead. So Putin wants the Ukrainians to give up that high ground. It makes no sense. And when you ask Ukrainians, 70% say never give up.
Yeah, that's the number I just saw, too. And Dan Rice has been counseling me the same way, that these people are given blood and treasure in ways that we haven't seen in a generation because they want to keep what they believe is theirs. All right, let's leave it there. We'll pick it up, of course. Thank you to each and all of you for your perspective, your help on and off camera. Thank you. Dan Rice, Vladimir Kara-Murza, and Ambassador Taylor. So 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Coming up, you see on the screen, please. Okay. Trending topics. I took this idea from one of my favorite shows that I watch all the time. Let's see how many of them we can tick off with the man who's got a take that's worth listening to about everything. Trump trying to end the war in Ukraine. Is this going to work? Trump's war with Gavin Newsom. Is Gavin Newsom making a power play for the presidency by mimicking Trump? I'm not feeling it, but a lot of you are. Let's discuss. Stephen A. Smith, the OAO, one and only. Next.
President Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, looks good.
I said to the one that attacked you last time. See, now he's I remember that.
Yeah, I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zelensky.
In the same suit. You see, I changed. You are not.
All right, let's bring in Stephen A. Smith. It's good to see you, my brother. I got to tell you, this
good to
really.
See you. How you doing?
I'm okay, man, but this bothers me. And I'll tell you why, man. This guy's got thousands of people dying every week in his country.
Yeah.
And this is the BS that the American media gives a damn about. And I believe this is authentic.
Yeah.
It matters more what he's wearing and why than whether or not that war ends in terms of our battle with one another here politically. How crazy is that?
Well, it's not crazy. It's predictable because what it shows is America's occasional selfishness. We care more about us than we give a damn about people who are dying in Ukraine, some of us anyway. And the reason why I say something like that is because you're more concerned about what this man is wearing as opposed to what he's experiencing on a day-to-day basis because of a war that was instigated by Russia. And when you ignore what's going on in his nation to focus on something so frivolous, so trivial, it's a problem. Now, is it good that he wore a suit this time? Sure. You're showing up to the White House. It is the White House after all. You're a statesman and stuff like that. We get it. But we also shouldn't make a big deal if he doesn't. He's preoccupied with something far, far more serious and more vicious than showing up to the White House to have a conversation with the President of the United States, his surrogates, as well as the media itself. And it's unfortunate that we would even play into that, but it shows where our priorities lie. If we were experiencing war in real time, having bombs, having our schools bombed and our homes bombed and our businesses and our roads and our infrastructure, just decimated. If we were going through that, we wouldn't be thinking about wearing a suit. We'd be thinking about taking off our jackets, our ties, and everything, rolling up our sleeves and doing what we had to do to deal with the situation. But apparently we forget about that when it comes to another nation, and that's unfortunate.
What do you make of the political calculation for the president to even have this ambition? This is a guy who campaigned on how stupid foreign involvements are for America. He didn't get the Iraq war because we didn't even come away with the oil. You can criticize his disposition towards these things, but he's been pretty consistent. And now he's putting a lot of capital, taking a lot of heat, trying to make peace in a place that he campaigned wanting to not deal with anymore. What do you think the upside is to him for this, and is it worth it?
Well, the first things first, the reality is, and excusing my language, he opened his mouth and deposited checks his ass can't cash. That's really what it comes down to. You got to be able to end this war. You talked a lot of stuff about ending this war and how you would end it in one day. Now, we recognize that that's hyperbole. We understand that something like that is not going to end in one day. But the flip side is that he was proclaiming that he had such a relationship, with the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, that, he could get him to do what others couldn't do. Well, okay, let's fast forward 6 months later. What do? You have a meeting with Putin on American soil. No big deal there. I'm not making a big deal of where the meeting was in Alaska. I don't care if it was in Russia or anywhere else. Who cares? What I care about is the fact that you promised a ceasefire or severe consequences before the meeting. And in the immediate aftermath of a meeting, there was no ceasefire agreement. And a matter of fact, you seemed damn near friendly towards him, acting like the meeting was productive. Well, where's the evidence? We don't see any as of yet. There hasn't been a ceasefire that's been achieved. They're talking about moving beyond that and having a peace agreement, which is far more lengthy, far more sustainable, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it's going to take some time to accomplish that. We understand that too. But in the time that it takes to accomplish that, what is Putin going to do? Chances are he's going to bomb Ukraine even more so. Chances are he's going to try to gain more territory. He's going to continue to kill more Ukrainians. That's the likelihood. Yeah. So when we sit around and act like, this is a lengthy process, it's going to take some time, and it's antithetical to what he said and what kind of impression that he gave, and you combine that with the fact that, very little is getting done in terms of proof as to what the relationship truly is. If you've got that kind of relationship with Putin, he got a photo op, he got a chance to be on American soil, and he avoided having to agree to a ceasefire or anything else. So it was a pretty damn good day for Putin as far as we can tell.
Good day for Putin.
If it's a good day for an authoritarian leader, how's that a good day for us?
Well, okay, so let's look at that, because you're totally right in your analysis, certainly as it regards Putin's fortunes, because a lot of other major countries would be arresting him. Say if he landed there. So, this was good for him. All right, so why would we do it? Now, to me, the analysis has to be flipped through the lens of, well, what's the better idea? What's the better idea if you want to end this war? Well, you got to be hard. You got to punch Putin in the nose. I think that is hollow bravado. I get the theory
I agree with that.
of you got to push this guy. But they have pushed him. They say he has to answer to a constituency. Stephen A., that's BS. He does not have to answer to a constituency. He does not give a damn how many of his people die. He does not give a damn about emptying out the prisons. This is a bad guy. So what's the better idea of how to make peace than what Trump is doing? I'm not saying I like it. I'm just saying I don't have a better way.
Right. Well, here's the point. You're not saying you don't have a better way. You're pointing out how the Democrats don't have a better way. They have no ideas, full of bluster, talking a lot of stuff, and don't have any muscle behind their words. We can't say anything. We have to backtrack, and I did it today on my YouTube show, the Stephen A. Smith Show. I talked about 1991 when Ukraine, captured its independence. I talked about how, Bill Clinton coaxed them into an agreement to give up 1,900 nuclear warheads, okay, which obviously were returned back to Russia. I talked about the promises made but not kept, about protection and things of that nature, being a security blanket, them in concert with the UK and Russia, and how that man, Vladimir Putin, and others violated the agreement. We talk about this kind of stuff. We talk about the annexation of Crimea. We were talking about when Russia came and they took over Crimea. That was under the Obama administration. We're talking about a full-out war that has been engaged under the Biden administration. So you talk about Biden, you talk about Obama, you talk about Clinton, that contributed to Ukraine being weakened in the eyes of the world. So Trump could make the argument, if he wasn't so interested in bravado and sticking out his chest and talking about how he's got a relationship with Putin that nobody else has, and instead focused on the fact that, you dudes were the one who did this. You weakened Ukraine. You put them in this vulnerable position. And now I'm here to try to clean it up. Don't hate me for trying. At least I'm doing so. That's his argument right there, because what that will do is galvanize the rest of America to rally around him because of the position that he has taken, knowing that it wasn't his fault that it's in this state and that he's trying to find a solution which is better than anybody else has done since they've been in office. Am I missing something?
I do agree, and I felt the same way even during the Biden administration. The country doesn't get credit for trying. You could just as easily justify, I know, Putin is fighting with Ukraine.
He deserves credit for trying.
Israel is fighting with Hamas. Not my fight. America could have that posture. There are a lot of Americans who would welcome it, by the way, because of the blood and treasure we've spent on things that never pay off for us in our own provincial view.
Right.
Let's take a break. When we come back, things that do have blood implications for us. What's happening in D.C.? And to Stephen A.'s point, what do the Democrats got that's better? Gavin Newsom's answer is, I can tweet like Trump and use all caps. And the left seems to love it. What am I missing? Because I think this is trying to match stupid. Next.
It's not good enough to just hold hands, have a candlelight vigil, and talk about the way the world should be. We have got to recognize the cards that have been dealt. And we have got to meet fire with fire. They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides, because they know what Donald Trump knows. He's going to lose the midterms.
Look, I don't get it, but people on the left say that Gavin Newsom has struck a chord. I believe that if you can't beat him, join him. This is what this feels like. Gerrymandering is either wrong or it's not wrong. And if you're going to do it, then you're answering the question. And I don't understand how this is about better, but maybe better doesn't get you to best anymore. Maybe this is the right way, and this is Newsom figuring that out. What does Stephen A. Smith say as he rejoins us? On the political side, does this work for you?
It does when it comes to Gavin Newsom. I think it's the best thing he's done in years. I have to be honest with you.
Why?
If you asked me this a few months ago, particularly in the aftermath of the wildfires, I'd say he's irrelevant. There's no chance in hell. But I think he struck a chord. And here's what I'm saying, Chris. I've said this on many occasions when I've been asked this question about voters who loved Trump. Ron DeSantis and Liz Cheney and Ted Cruz and most Republicans would have governed right along how Trump is governing. But when you listen to his supporters, it's not what he does, it's how he does it. He's truculent, he's disrespectful, he's in your face, he doesn't care, He will mock you and mimic you. He will ridicule you. He will embarrass you. In Gavin Newsom's case, he calls him new scum. Not Newsom, his name, new scum. Think about that. And the voters like, yeah.
So do the pod bros.
Yeah, we love it. Why? Why? Because that's how the average voter feels about politicians on Capitol Hill. That is the way they wish they could speak to politicians on Capitol Hill. And because Trump does it, he's ingratiated himself with a cult-like following that loves the way he does stuff, not just what he does. Now Gavin Newsom has struck a chord with some on the left because they want him to be just as truculent, just as disrespectful, just as volatile. You saw his tweet today where he was literally mocking and speaking, in Trump-like fashion, just to mock and ridicule the president. And you see Trump sort of taking a step back like, whoa, what the hell is this? Talking about Nobel Peace Prize and how he deserves it, Gavin C. Newsom and stuff like that. Trolling and doing things that Trump is doing. Why? Because if you're Gavin Newsom, you got to get people to forget about your sanctuary cities, some of the policies that you were endorsing, like open borders and stuff like that. You got to get them to forget about the homelessness, the poverty, the unemployment, the crime, a whole bunch of stuff you got to get them to forget about. What better way to do that than have them preoccupied on how you're going after Trump? Because remember, he's not running for the governor's seat again. His term is up. Term limits. It ends next year. He's going for national office now. And he's got to give the appeal that he's leaning heavily towards the center in an effort to get everybody to forget about how extreme left he was. And also remember, Chris, most people ain't paying attention to California. It's California. It's New York. We get that part. But most folks ain't paying attention to it. At least that's what he's betting on. I don't think it will work, but I actually think at this particular moment, he's the best looking candidate in terms of how he's going after Trump, because you're going to have people going to the polls. They couldn't tell the economy, inflation, immigration, affordability, crime, etc. Most people are going to go to the polls because they can't stand Trump. Just like most people are going to go to the polls because they love Trump and hate the left. That's what he's banking on, that will galvanize him through the Democratic nomination and position him to go directly up against Trump. That's what he's counting on.
Right. Well, first of all, then he would have to do that with the rest of the field, not just with Trump. Look, it's hard for me to see the through line of success. Maybe this is why I'm not the Cuomo who's in elected politics. I just watch it. But I don't know how you mimic somebody and copy somebody and wind up beating them. I've never seen it in fighting. You don't want to go strength versus strength with an opponent. You want to find an opponent's weakness.
I'm saying, what else have you seen?
Gavin is playing to his strength.
Tell me, listen. You know this better than me, my man. I learned what I learned from you. That's why I'm brilliant, because I know I'm not. I learned from the best, baby. Here's the point. I'm saying to you, Chris Cuomo, tell me what Democratic candidate has looked more feisty going after Trump. We see cats that qualify. I love Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania. I love Wes Moore, governor of Maryland. Any of those two candidates, they win a Democratic nomination. I'm happy they got my vote. But my point to you is, who has looked like the candidate eager, willing, and capable with literally nothing to lose to go up against not Donald Trump, who's not running for re-election unless the 22nd Amendment gets averted and this guy finds a way to run for a third term. Not him per se, but one of his acolytes or one of his surrogates, somebody that's placed in that position where he's behind the scenes wielding his influence. There is no one that we have seen that has gotten on their nerves, that's willing to go after them the way Newsom has. And all I'm saying is, I don't think it'll work, because I think his record in California will come back to bite the living hell out of him. But I have to confess, what he has been doing lately has been raking their nerves. I've seen the right reacting in an acerbic way, more unusual compared to what they would do with other candidates. He's got their attention, and I think in some cases, he's induced fear. And it's going to be interesting to see how folks respond going against him, because he's smart, he's articulate, he looks the part. And bottom line is, even though I thought he lost the debate to Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, by the way, in the end, I look at him and I say, excuse me, If he could get on Trump's nerves and agitate him a little bit more, and Trump, dare I say, is foolish enough to play into his hands, it could make things far more interesting than any of us suspect.
Right, except he ain't running against Trump. He's going to be running against other Democrats.
I agree.
And maybe I'm just being foolishly idealistic, but I believe that what wins in the midterms is better. I think people are exhausted, and that this is more punks acting like punks. And could I be wrong? Yeah, sure, it happens with stunning frequency. But
It's not.
I hold out for better. I do. I hold out for better.
I'm looking at you. Let me tell you. I got, because you're a friend of mine and I love you, man. I got to tell you. You got to look better than you look right now.
That never
look
ends
sad.
well.
You look sad. You look sad. You look really, really sad right now. You look defeated. Don't be defeated. The fact of the matter is this. We got the midterms for sure, but you got 2028 thereafter. Gavin Newsom ain't running for no midterm, man. And the Democrat, and listen,
he's not.
Either he's going to beat the Democrats or he's going to bring the best out of the best amongst them. One way or another, if the country wants to be lean towards center, more towards reasonability, and less towards cult-like followings, we've got to have contestants. I'm talking about real challenges for the job that force people to step their game up and compete, as opposed to relying on rhetoric and silliness and inconsequential things in order to get the highest office in the land. That's what I'm hoping for, and Gavin Newsom may spark that.
Listen, look, it's working for him right now. We're talking about him. So, you got to give him an attaboy. I just don't like what works these days. I think we're going down a road of everything's getting more and more extreme. And I think you wind up just disconnecting from the majority of the country. But hopefully I'm wrong.
But he hasn't been extreme. He hasn't been extreme.
But listen,
he's been within bounds.
No question. No question. Although, look, he plays the game like everybody else. He won't come on here now because Adam Carolla went after him one night. But look, I get it. That's politics. I will say this. The only thing I disagree with you about is my concern for the level of how we're practicing politics in this country is real. But I am the most ridiculously optimistic. That's why I started the show the way I did. Bravo to America for even trying to make peace. We don't have to do this. Trump is doing what's hard. And I give it to him for that. I don't know that he's going to get it done, and I don't know that he's going about it the right way.
So do I.
But I felt the same way about Biden. Trying to do what's hard, I respect that, and that's America's place in the world. All right, I got to jump. I appreciate you making it look easy, Stephen A. Smith. You're the man.
Appreciate you as always, my man. Take it easy.
Man. 4 minutes, 15 seconds. Up next, you know who matters most, second only to Stephen A. You. Have your say. 844-968-7720. I'll never quit. There's no quit in me. Next. Hey, Dusty, that Stop and Shop in East Hampton had a structure fire. My guys, the brothers went over there. It was just a Freon leak. They were just telling me. I know you like that place.
That's where I spent my whole vacation, at the Stop and Shop. When you weren't trying to fix the pool heater. Still broken. Mike from Rhode Island.
What's your question, sir?
Hey, Chris, thanks for taking my call. So with the meeting between Trump and Putin on American soil, I'm a Trump supporter. I voted for him, and I stand by him to this day. I don't quite understand why we didn't take the opportunity to capture him, to arrest him on the spot for all of his the war crimes that he's committed. We could have been positioned where we took out the nuclear arsenal in Russia, like we did with Iran, and I think we'd be in a pretty good spot right now.
No way. No way. First of all, this guy is so volatile. You arrest him, you bring him here under false pretenses, and you arrest him. What would China do? What would North Korea do? What would Syria do? What would Iran do? You don't hoodwink at that level. And I get people saying he's a war criminal. There are a lot of bad guys in the world, and sometimes you got to do business with them. I don't care that the meeting was on American soil. Either you're doing what you have to do to try to get it to a better place, or you're not. Here is my frame of analysis, Mike, and I appreciate you calling in. Thank you. What's the better idea? I do not think arresting the guy was the better idea. I don't know what is a better idea than what they're trying right now. Putin is a tough guy to make a deal with because he doesn't give a damn about what happens to his people. Next.
Break and try to get one in on the other side.
That's what she said. That's what I'll do. See you in a second. All right, you guys said you missed the calls. We're doing more calls. Who do you got?
Matty Stu, he's been trying to get on for quite some time. Matty Stu from California.
All right, brother. Thank you for the patience. What's your question?
Chris, does the Democrats fight fire with fire only light a losing path forward?
I don't know. I mean, I get your metaphor. You heard what Stephen A. said. Pretty compelling. However, I don't agree. And it's not that I'm defeated. I'm not a Democrat. What the hell do I care? I hate the two-party system. I think it's a mistake. I think it's what's dragging us down. I just believe in better. I don't like bullies. I don't like bullying. I don't like bravado. I don't like people who talk trash. And I don't know how being what beat you and playing two wrongs make a right. I mean, look, it's resonating with you guys now. I mean, Newsom's getting talked about in a way he wasn't before. But is that really what wins, or is it that just if you can't beat them, join them? And it just seems like more extremism and making excuses for not having better ideas and not acquitting yourself better. I don't even think the Republicans are going to stay in this mode after President Trump is gone, and he will be gone. This BS about the next term in the Constitution, they're just playing on your ignorance or banking on it. So I just think that they're going to run back towards character counts, and there's an opportunity for the rest of the country to be something more than this. All right, we'll see. We'll watch it together. Leland takes the ball right now. Mr. Vittert.
Welcome back, my friend. I have missed you. Is DeSantis and Newsom fair comparison? Newsom just the next DeSantis?
I don't think we would see DeSantis, and not just because of toolbox, but inclination, try to be more Trumpy than Trump. And you can say, yeah, that's why Trump beat him. Maybe, but it's a different game.
I'm saying is
with Trump
Newsom
out
just
of it.
the next DeSantis, right? A lot of fire, all this interest, hot social media.
No, because DeSantis runs on a very unique proposition in politics. What I did worked. Look what I did with Florida. I don't have to sell you on it. Everybody's moving there. That's what he's going to offer. I did the job in a real place, and Newsom failed time and time again. So it's going to be charisma versus pedigree.
Well, you heard it here first from Chris Cuomo. DeSantis 2028. Here we go.